Cue the creepy deep ocean ambience for this one. It sounds like the plot of a movie or some sci-fi story. In 1964, this strange structure was spotted in the deep ocean off Cape Horn. More than 12,000 feet deep below the ocean's surface, you'll find this thing. This almost artificial looking structure that stunned people. Some dared to say that it couldn't have been natural, but could have perhaps been an ancient extraterrestrial antenna or some other transmitter. But what is this object? Is it still there? Would we see it if we went back and photographed it again, deep under the ocean's surface, looking no different? Or is it something strange, but something natural? This is the story, the discovery, and the mystery of the Eltanin Antenna. In 1964, the American ship USNS Eltanin was off Cape Horn doing scientific research on the ocean floor. She was built with an ice-breaking hull for braving the hazardous icy seas of the Arctic. For the backstory, she was launched in 1957, and then during the years 1961 to 1962, she was modified and converted into a research ship. Cargo spaces were converted into labs, staterooms for scientists and other researchers or passengers who happened to be on board. More labs and research areas were also added onto the deck, anti-rolling tanks were installed, workshops were added, and anything else scientists might need for the region that the ship would be working in. The ship went on to have a very fruitful scientific career in the Antarctic region. In fact, over a decade after discovering the thing that this video is focusing on, she also discovered another anomaly down there that I might do a video on sometime down the line. The Eltanin Impact Crater in Antarctica, thought to be around 2.5 million years old roughly. Now back to the story at hand though. After the conversions were finished on the ship in 1962, she was redesignated as T-AGOR-8 and her status was reclassified as being an oceanographic research vessel. And she was assigned to the Natural Science Foundation to their Antarctic Research Program. Sounds like the plot to the thing so far, and I hope you're paying attention because it's time for the pop quiz. Tell me what just happened. I kid. She took on a total of 52 Antarctic expeditions, though, throughout her career from July 1962 to December 1972, and surveyed over 80% of the Southern Ocean in this time and traveled a total of 400,000 miles. Her research was critical in helping discover evidence that led to the acceptance of continental drift theory. She proved that the seafloor does indeed spread, and in August 1964, while on her 14th cruise on a trans-Pacific route from Wellington to Valparaiso on a voyage that would total 7,880 nautical miles, she spotted something in the deep ocean. This is the antenna. Everything that day was going routine, slow, and by the book, and then they suddenly see this after they developed the pictures they'd taken? It really is like the start of an alien movie or something similar. The picture shows a very strange, tall object, like a tower of some kind, deep below the ocean's surface that, admittedly, looks vaguely like some sort of artificial object. The word alien even comes to mind, and you might think the same if you were to suddenly see this on the ocean floor unexpectedly. You don't typically expect to see something like this down there. You generally don't expect to see anything down there. The object was photographed by a camera attached to the ship with a cable being used as part of an operation to photograph the seafloor west of Cape Horn. The upright structure of the object is very noticeable. Reportedly, the position that the object was photographed was at 59 degrees, 7 minutes south, 105 degrees, 3 minutes west, at a depth of nearly 13,000 feet below the ocean's surface. The public were first shown the picture in December 1964, about 3.5 months after the photo was taken, when it was published in the New Zealand Herald under the title, Puzzle Picture from the Seabed. Quote, "The American research ship Eltanin sailed into Auckland yesterday with a mysterious photo taken at 2,250 fathoms, 1,000 miles west of Cape Horn. The photograph, which to laymen shows something like a complex radio aerial jutting out of the mud bottom, was taken on August 29th by a submarine camera." End quote. In the article, one Dr. Thomas Hopkins, senior biologist aboard the Eltanin, said that he felt the object could in no way be a plant due to the depth. He added, "I wouldn't like to say the thing is man-made, because this brings up the problem of how one would get it there. But it's fairly symmetrical, and the offshoots are all 90 degrees apart. This is why it's been argued over for so long. In 1968, the story of the antenna was printed in the United States under the name Unidentified Underwater Saucers. It was also printed again in 1970 by the UFO Journal. This article made claims found nowhere in the original, such as, quote, Dr. Hopkins clarified the object's location as being on the 45,000-mile fault line rift that encircles our planet, and our science does not yet possess underwater vehicles capable of descending to such depths. Therefore, no one on Earth that we are aware of could have placed the device off Cape Horn. End quote. This article does also not include the original picture. You know, just a little tangent here, but I find this little anomaly and just story so fascinating. I even gave it a shout out in my story, The Missing U-Boat, in a scene where the characters, who are all marine archaeologists, are scanning the ocean floor and they see something strange. One of them mentions that they don't know what it is, but it's definitely not another Eltanin antenna. And I've seen some people talk about this image and what the object is briefly, but it seems to have just been so deep in the ocean that it, ironically, flew under most people's radars. It seems rather obscure overall, and I only learned about it in an iceberg video on ocean mysteries, and it immediately got my mind racing, and here we are months later talking about it ourselves. This has been on my video list for months, and I'm not even kidding. Due to the strange nature of the image, the antenna, like so many other things we've talked about, has been subjected to conspiracy theories and UFO theories over the years. Individuals such as Bruce Cathy, a New Zealand pilot who was a proponent of flying saucer and a world energy grid theory, can't even say it with a straight face, supported the idea that the object was an alien artifact. He sounds like a real expert in the field, and honestly, I'm surprised something like Ancient Aliens hasn't hit this thing up yet. It feels like they would've, and I don't think they did. I actually dove down the rabbit hole and looked at some Ancient Aliens to see if they talked about this. I don't think they did, but at least I didn't find anything that said that they had. Yes, I committed and dove down into that rabbit hole for this video. You know, I will admit, though, the idea is kind of one that does make the mind wander, and it pulls the right strings on your imagination, for me at least, and heck, I even thought about giving it a mention in another story I wrote set in the same universe as the U-boat one, called the Roswell incident, where the alien would actually have mentioned they had an object on the ocean floor down there in that area, but I didn't. I will throw them the bone that the idea is cool, but wrong. So what is it really? Marine biologists and other authorities in that field have studied the image and suggested that the object was in fact only a large and unusual carnivorous sponge known as, and I'm going to butcher this because this name honestly sounds like something that would fit an extraterrestrial, Concrolidea concrescensis. Yeah, here it is on screen. Go ahead and make fun of me in the comments for that first attempt at pronouncing it. I can take it. As you can see, though, there is a strong resemblance. A very strong resemblance. The species was first discovered way back in 1869 and published in the book Three Cruises of the United States Coast and Geodetic Survey Steamer Blake in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Caribbean Sea, and along the Atlantic coast of the United States from 1877 to 1880. Man, could you have come up with a longer title, dude. Described at the time in that book as a long stem ending in ramifying roots sunk deeply into the mud, the stem has nodes with 4 to 6 club-like appendages. They evidently cover, like bushes, extensive tracts of the bottom. The species is accepted today to be what was photographed in the infamous Eltanin Antenna photograph in 1964. In 1971, this was the conclusion reached in the book The Face of the Deep by Bruce C. Heason and Charles D. Hollister, which identified the antenna as the aforementioned carnivorous sponge. At the time, though, this conclusion was just kinda shrugged off. Again, it just flew under the radar, or it was just outright ignored, and the topic fell into that gray area of weird obscurity that these things kinda just tend to. Sometimes these really interesting but tiny little anomalies just get really obscure, and then when you find them, you're like, what? There was a bit of a resurgence in interest, though, in the object in 2003, which was around the most recent time that the matter was investigated again, and it was, again, formally identified to be a sponge. And if you look at a picture or modern video of these kinds of sponges captured by updated technology, they look identical to the antenna. That was just a very long-winded way of saying it was just a sponge. The ship that started this whole mystery, by the way, had a collage of other scientific accomplishments. Aside from discovering the impact crater and Antarctica in later years, she also discovered several other features on the ocean floor, including the Chile Ridge, the Eltanin Fracture, the Louisville Ridge, and the southward continuation of the Peru-Chile Ridge. She also discovered the Antarctic bottom water in the Ross Sea, the polar front or the Antarctic convergence, and its variations in structure and intensity as deep as 1,000 meters down. She and her researchers also determined the composition and the width of the Antarctic circumpolar current, and furthered our knowledge on sediment thickness in various regions of the area, gravity and magnetic fields, and was overall one of the main sources for new and just most info in general about the ocean bottom south of 35 degrees south on the map. And the impact event she discovered traces of in the 1980s occurred off the coast of Antarctica, and the impactor was likely large enough to have generated a tsunami with waves several hundred feet high. But again, that is a video topic for another day, so just consider that a teaser. But yep, all this excitement that we just covered, all of the grand UFO conspiracy theories, all of it was just over a sponge. It's like the boring Billion video all over again when I got all excited about Otavia. I'll link that video at the end if you want to see me get all hyped up over a sponge again, but that's going to wrap this one up. The crazy theories are more interesting than the real answer to the mystery turned out to be. Now, there's something charming about when we don't have answers, but in this case, I think the charm also comes from the excitement that it created. However, I have very little patience for the misinformation that gets spread around about it. If you've been around for a minute, you know what my thoughts are on people who deliberately spread misinformation around just to deceive people for, like, their own gain. I have very little patience for it, which is one reason why I wanted to start making videos addressing these kinds of topics. That, and I think these topics are cool, so two birds with one stone. And as I've said, the whole idea of an alien artifact being on the ocean floor is a very cool thing. The Baltic Sea anomaly also, very cool idea. And, you know, that could be a cool idea for a movie or show, or heck, maybe even I'll revisit it for a new story based on this. Maybe I'll write a story where this is an alien antenna, or maybe I'll actually reference it in the sequel to the Roswell incident that I'm working on, where maybe the alien will reference the antenna being something from his species, but we'll see. I don't want to go off on a brainstorming rant in the middle of a video. I've done that before and I've had to cut a lot of dead air basically out. And as cool as I've said, as cool as the idea is, even as a thought experiment, at the end of the day, the truth is the truth. It is just a sponge. And I wonder if it would still be there or if it's long gone. I don't know anything about sponges. I don't know how long they live, so who knows? Maybe if it was photographed, if the area was photographed again, maybe it would be very different, larger, or just straight up gone. And I think that would be enough to put some of these ideas to rest. Oh, who am I kidding? Conspiracy theorists aren't reasonable people. They would just say the government took it. But what do you guys think of this deep ocean mystery? It's just funny to me how stuff like this gets all these crazy theories around it when it's honestly something pretty mundane. The human imagination really is something incredible. But I think it's cool. I think the picture's cool. I think the what-ifs are cool. And I think just this little story was cool. But tell me in a comment what you thought of the mystery, what you think of the answer, and what you think of the picture. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it. And let me know what you think and how I can continue to improve, because I want to make the best content that I can. Alright, I will see you in the next one. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one, everyone.